The bad blood is going to boil over at some point. It might be here in Vegas tonight.
Nattie Neidhart is carrying on the legacy of Calgary's legendary Hart wrestling family. The WWE star is the granddaughter of Stu Hart, niece of Bret the Hitman Hart, and daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And now Nattie tells her story in Last Heart Beating from the Dungeon to WWE. And Nattie joins us here in Calgary. Welcome back home.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ian.
Now, where we're sitting is just a stone's throw from the Hart House, which had such an enormous influence on your life. When you come back here, the memories just must come flooding back.
The first thing I did when I landed in Calgary was drive by the Hart House. It just, you know, it's where we grew up. It was my grandfather's home. It was where he built everything with the Hart family. And driving past the house and just, you know, looking at it, and just seeing the lawn, like where we would have our, you know, you look in that window where the dungeon was, and it just brings back a flood of memories. But it's just really like the place. You know, when I close my eyes and think of my childhood, I think of the Hart House.
It was a bit of a refuge for you and your sisters, though, in that you had troubled times in Florida. Your dad lost his job as a wrestler. Your mom was going to the food bank. Like, you fell on really tough times. So what was it like coming back to stay at the Hart House once again? Well,
you know, growing up in the industry, my dad had, you know, high highs and low lows. And so in and out of, you know, working in WWE and being a big star there was also these, you know, we document that in the book, just the hard times. And so thankfully, my grandfather opened up his home to us, and he had one room left in the Hart House, and it was my mom's old bedroom when she was a little girl. So, you know, I loved being able to share that story in the book because my grandfather really helped us when we were kids. He really helped save us in so many ways. And my mom's bedroom was, you know, we had one bed. We shared that bed for a long time, and right outside the window of my mom's room that we lived in when we moved back to Calgary was a wrestling ring. And so when I would look out that window, I knew that there was like something down there that was gonna really define my life. And I didn't quite know what it was, but now, you know, after writing the book, I was like, that was so symbolic that right outside the window of her room where we lived was the ring. And the ring really was our lighthouse. In our family, it was always the port in the storm.
Okay, you have two sisters. They're not wrestlers.
No.
Why did you become a wrestler then?
I was always the ham of the girls. I have my sister Jenny, she's a culinary artist. My little sister Muffy, she is a teacher. And I was always the one that just liked to be in the spotlight. I loved being athletic, but I also loved theatrics. I loved, you know, theater. I loved drama. I loved, you know, just being theatrical. And so for me, there was always a little bit more of a calling to do this thing called wrestling. But in our family, there was only men that had ever done it. My uncles, of course, you know, the most famous being Bret the Hitman Hart, arguably, I think, and I'm biased. Don't get me wrong, I'm biased. I think he's the greatest professional wrestler that's ever lived. But my uncles, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, who was iconic, and anybody that knew Owen knew that he was, you know, also athletic beyond words and such a special person. My other uncles, the British Bulldogs, my dad, Jim Neidhart, my grandfather, Stu Hart, all men that wrestled. And so I was the first female in our family to do it. And it wasn't like it was an easy road because, of course, you know, I didn't really think it was something my grandfather wanted the girls doing. But you know when somebody tells you not to do something, what does it make you want to do?
Oh, yeah.
It makes you want to do it.
Well, you've had an amazing career, but the thing is, when you started wrestling, you don't go straight to Madison Square Garden, right? So you were wrestling in front of 9 people in Cold Lake, Alberta.
Cold Lake. Oh, and you know, that's a great part of the journey, was you know, starting there. My uncles, my grandfather, they all had to start like that too, where you got to build. Success doesn't just come to you, you got to chase it. But I do remember a road trip that we had to Cold Lake, and our ring truck didn't quite work properly. We had to set up and build our own wrestling ring. Once we got to the show, it was a big labor of love, you know, where you go to the show, there wasn't a big house, so nobody really got paid. But I remember those times as being some of the best times ever. My uncles, Bruce Hart and Ross Hart, they were promoting the shows back then, and they were my first teachers in professional wrestling, Bruce and Ross. And so those two actually taught me so much about surviving the industry, and especially my early stages in the dungeon.
Now, you're very frank in this book about your dad, and your family did something interesting after he had passed away. You donated his brain to science.
Yes.
And discovered that there was very serious brain damage.
Right.
How did that explain some of the irrational behavior that he had?
Well, my dad had a brain injury that he was living with for a long time. So for much of my childhood, my teen years, my adult years, my dad, he struggled. He struggled with anxiety. He struggled with depression. He had a lot of demons that he was battling. And so I didn't always understand why he was doing the things that he was doing. Why couldn't he hold on to a job? Why, it was just, there was a lot of unanswered questions. And so after my dad passed away, we were presented with this option to donate his brain for research. And we discovered that my dad had this very serious brain injury. And so it unlocked a lot for me. And also for me, it was a tough decision to decide, okay, what do we want? Like, do we really want to donate his brain? I just wanted my dad to be at peace, but I also wanted to do something that could unlock answers for us and something that could advance science. Mm-hmm. And so we did that. But I dedicated the book to my dad because in writing about him, I really healed a lot. And my dad is a main character in the book. He's somebody that moved me so much. I loved my dad so much. He was such an important part of my life, but you can love somebody a lot and they can hurt you a lot. And and I think that's really resonating with readers. They're reading that and they're seeing a lot of a reflection of themselves in it. I've had so many family members and so many friends and so many fans around the world messaging me saying, I see so much, I see a reflection of me in this. And I love when people can relate to that because it's not easy opening up and writing about these very vulnerable points where even when I was writing the book, Ian, I was like, I don't know if I should share this. I don't know, maybe this is too much, but if it can help somebody else on their healing journey, it's all worth it. And
to be clear, you suspect his brain injury did not result from wrestling, it resulted from football.
Well, and here's the thing. Nobody, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know all the particulars and all the ins and outs of that, but my dad started playing football when he was 11 years old. And so back then, they weren't playing with proper helmets. My dad was a defensive tackle, he was a nose guard, and he played very hard, and he would talk about that. When we were growing up, my dad would playfully brag about how hard he would play football, and he would say when I'd get my bell rung, we would just keep going back out and playing, and the coaches were so proud of me because of how much heart I had. Mm-hmm. But now we understand that if you get your head bell rung, so to speak, and it's not a good idea to continue to play. But back in the 60s and 70s, nobody had that kind of information. We didn't have that kind of knowledge. So my dad had started exhibiting behavior that was not normal per se when he was in his early 20s. Yeah. But again, I'm not saying that I would totally, disqualify all of his activities and his lifestyle. I mean, it's hard to say because I'm not a scientist, but I do think that playing football without a helmet, especially in a very, very competitive way, I think it's, I really do feel like it kind of contributed to my dad's brain injury.
Yeah, we've learned so much more over the years, haven't we?
Thankfully.
Yeah. Now, your husband, TJ, also a wrestler, also a Calgarian, broke his neck while wrestling.
Yes.
He's okay now. He's
yes.
walking and talking around.
Yeah.
He has another role within WWE now. But doesn't that make you think about, gee, this is an awfully dangerous business?
Well, and the truth is that life is dangerous. Life is precarious. And yes, TJ's injury was a very serious one. And, I was also able to talk I really stripped down to my rawest moments writing those chapters on TJ's injury, his neck, his situation, his struggle, but I was like, I can't show the world the other side of hope without showing them what he went through, what we went through. That was the hardest time in my life, in his life. We went through so much together with that, but it brought him, his injury, as crazy as it sounds, brought him to the best point in his life. So if somebody's reading it and they're feeling hopeless and they feel like they're at their wit's end and they're going through something really, really hard, I wanted to use that injury and that story and that example as hey, on the other side of this really hard time, there's so much hope. And now TJ is a producer for WWE. He produces, we're with WWE, we're on Netflix, we're Monday Night Raw and SmackDown are their longest running episodic TV shows in history. Mm-hmm. And TJ produces weekly television on a global scale. So he loves what he does. He loves the talent that he works with. And just last week we had John Cena come to our ring.
Oh, very cool.
And he came to our ring and he was just it's very cool, but he's always just been in awe of what TJ does, and it was so nice to see that mutual gratitude paid back, to TJ because now he's in this great point in his life where someone like John Cena is saying, hey, this is awesome.
In the book, you have not just a foreword, but you also have a preface. One's by Bret the Hitman Hart, your uncle. The other is by Dwayne Johnson.
Yes.
What does it mean to you to get their stamp of approval?
Well, Bret wrote me the most beautiful words that, like, when he sent it to me, I had to, like, it made me very emotional reading what he wrote. And I thought, I have to have this start my book. I have to have his words open my book because he, without even reading my book and knowing what I was going to write, he captured the story perfectly. Because Bret's a master storyteller. Dwayne Johnson, I wanted Dwayne to be a part of the book because we actually have very similar parallels in our careers. Like Dwayne's father was a wrestler and my dad was a wrestler. Dwayne's grandmother was a wrestling promoter, Leah Maivia. And my grandfather, Stu Hart, was a wrestling promoter. And of course, Dwayne's daughter, Ava, she's in WWE. She's a female, star in WWE. So I thought, okay, Dwayne and I have all these different aspects that are kind of the same. And he's arguably the biggest star in the world. I would love to have him give some words and, just really, he's somebody that I just look up to so much, and he's a huge supporter of women's wrestling. So I really wanted him to write the foreword, and he wrote something beautiful. His foreword was beautiful, and of course he tied in our fathers, which tying in the story that he wrote in the foreword, he had a nice little bit about our dads that meant so much. It was just so cool. Everybody just loves Dwayne.
Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you for joining us.
Ian, thank you so much.
All right. And Nattie Neidhart's new book is The Last Heart Beating, From the Dungeon to WWE.